This is a good segue because my friends, why is it that Washington, D.C. is putting up these permanent barricades now in the green zone? You hear about this,
No.
right? Yeah. So you know they set up the barricades all around D.C.?
Yeah.
It's permanent.
Okay. When did they decide to make this
Last week.
permanent? Okay.
And they're going to leave 5,000 National Guardsmen there.
I've heard of this.
You know why? There is a real threat. There is. They keep saying there's like a threat of white supremacy in the far right. It's not really that. I mean, they'll say that, but there is a threat. The real threat is the rabble, who can see they can see now through the shattered veil. It's almost like the Matrix. And then one day, all these robots are tending to the human crop, and then a bunch of humans wake up, and they can see what's going on around them. And if the machine doesn't get a hold of things, those people are going to get real angry, and they're going to rise up. So we see this massive security effort in D.C. Now we see the next and most interesting iteration in the desperation of the state, because they're really scared about what happens when people realize not only is the game rigged, but we are stealing everything from you and your family, and we're laughing the whole way down. A new gun bill would require public registry of all weapons. This is H.R. 127. This is one of the most insane things I've ever read, to the point where I really don't think it will pass. But this is a new gun control measure. It's been proposed by Jackson Lee Sheila, a Democrat from Texas. And it requires a lot of things. I don't know if you have a lot of the points on the gun control bill.
I do.
That you want to bring up specifically.
I want to bring up more about that security theater you were bringing up, because there's a CNN legal analyst named Elliot Williams who tweeted, quote, "Seems like a good day for a reminder that in any other year, hundreds of giddy children from across Washington, D.C. would be sledding at the Capitol building all day long. They can't because the grounds are closed to the public following a domestic terrorist attack." And then, I mean, just the hyperbolic, just the fear-mongering, just the nonsense there. And I think Michael Tracy had a response that is worth noting here and commenting on. And he said, or alternatively, the children can't sled on the hill because a security theater panic has been ginned up and virtually no one in a position of influence has bothered even questioning it. And
I think he's wrong.
Why?
It's not security theater.
It could be.
No. No. I'll tell you, it's that the media right now, their lies are so obvious. Luke, you were telling me about the Killdozer.
Yes, I watched a documentary about the Killdozer, and my goodness gracious.
Give us the gist of the Killdozer story.
It was an individual who felt wronged by city council, and he decided to take out his feelings of being mistreated by the government by literally building huge slabs of steel surrounding a
giant
big bulldozer, which he put in a 50 caliber firearm that was shooting out of, and other rifles out of, through little ports, and went on a rampage in a small town, literally going after anyone who thought he was wronged by him.
They couldn't stop him.
Nope.
It's called the Killdozer. And he only got stopped because his Killdozer fell into a basement. Yeah. When he destroyed a city councilman's house or whatever.
Well, he's going after one of the businesses that was owned by one of the people that that was wrong.
It's not security theater.
Yeah.
Now, the media is lying about, in my opinion, I think the media is lying about the threat, the far right. No, I think the real threat is that the veil has been shattered. They know it. They know we can now see them all working the machines behind the scenes going, what do we do now? If you have one person who feels wronged by the government in that way, and this one person goes nuts and builds a Killdozer. I mean, this is freaky stuff. We don't want this stuff. We don't want this.
No. We need to do everything in our power to prevent violence.
But you prevent
as much
it
as we can
by having justice. But these crony machine, the crony machine doesn't want that. Instead, they're now putting up massive barricades around the Capitol. So they're like, we know what's coming. We know the rage is there, and they don't care if it's, look, the media will tell you one thing, but that's the point I bring up. That's why I bring up this new firearms restriction, like the restrictions, HR 127. They want you to have a license and insurance and a whole bunch of crazy things. Listen, the crazy thing about it is that there are a lot of people right now who have a bunch of guns. They would want you to pay fees, get liability insurance. They would want you to register each and every weapon. Mandatory
psych evaluations, a national gun owner license, gun insurance for everything, as well as a publicly accessible database. And they want to ban 50 BMGs. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, this is absolutely draconian. This is frightening. This is terrifying because there's going to be a lot of individuals who are not going to register their firearms. And this House resolution makes it so you have to, or you face penalties and fines that could land you in jail for a year to 40 years.
Look at this. Let me read you from this article I have. This is from the Daily Fly. They say, a pro-gun group called the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms called the bill insanity on steroids. They say, over the years, we've seen some astonishingly bad legislation originate on Capitol Hill, but this one takes the term abomination to an entirely new level. One look at this bill and you wonder whether Congressman Jackson Lee ever heard of the Bill of Rights, which includes the Second Amendment. The bill would also ban all 50 caliber weapons, all 50 cals, not just BMG, all 50 cal. Now, my friends, a couple of years ago, I was like, oh, why, maybe you have liability insurance or, a license. And someone responded to me, that's great. It's a really good idea, Tim. I'm totally in favor of getting you insurance, liability insurance for your speech. And you have to get a license to be able to speak publicly. And then I was like, wait, no, I don't want that. I was like, oh, I see your point. The Bill of Rights says these things are inalienable rights. We have the right to keep and bear arms. We have the right to speech. And I said, okay, you're right. I don't want any restrictions on my speech for the most part, except for like committing a crime. And it's already illegal to commit a crime with a weapon. Therefore, all right, you should be able to have a weapon. Now they're doing everything in their power to, make these moves. We knew it was coming under Joe Biden. But this, when I read this, like it's a whole insanity on steroids is an understatement.
Yeah.
More importantly, I don't think it will pass because you're going to have some, more moderate Democrats. Especially I can't see Bernie Sanders agreeing with this.
Well, there are some pro-gun Democrats out there, but we also have to remember there has been a huge surge of new gun owners. Yeah. A lot of them from cities, a lot of them from Democratic areas that are understanding that, hey, maybe I shouldn't wait 15, 20, 30 minutes for police to respond. Maybe it'll be better if I have something that I could defend myself with, just like all the celebrities and politicians have. They have all these security guards. They have all these people always protecting them with firearms. And with this, law, with this resolution that they're trying to get passed, H.R. 127, this is going to lead to massive amount of harm. This is going to lead to a massive amount of problems. That's only going to make the situation that much worse.
It would ban gun ownership for people under 21. What?
It's not going to happen.
That is it. Like you're a legal adult at 18. You have constitutional rights.
You can fight in the military at 18.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already seen just how bad the laws are. And you know what? I've been thinking a lot more about this as I now own a decent quantity of firearms myself. My opinion on 2A has gone super far into pro 2A, whatever you want to call it. The Second Amendment says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed, right?
Yeah.
So should I be able to walk around bearing arms?
Well, depends on where you're walking around, but for the most part.
Where? Why? What does that mean?
If
Where?
you're walking around my living room, I might have a say in it.
Well, that's private property.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the gun. If someone breaks your house with a gun, it's a crime.
Even if I invited you over and you just pulled out a gun and I didn't know you had one,
You asked me to leave.
I'd probably freak out.
Yeah, but it's not a crime. If you invite someone to your house, the issue is in many places, in like the vast majority of places, the government tells you can't bear arms. No lie. Like legitimately. I was at the post office the other day and there was a sign on the door saying it is a violation of federal law to have a firearm inside, post office or whatever. And I was like, how do they do that? Does the Constitution not exist? I'm sorry. I'm not saying it's a good thing to walk around with a gun literally everywhere. Like, I'm not saying that someone should open carry walking into a post office. I'm saying, isn't it weird? The Constitution says you can't do it, and they literally did, and that's it. The Constitution is beyond Swiss cheese. It is tattered rags. So while I look at this and I'm thinking it won't pass, when you look at what, Luke and other people are calling security theater, you look at the rage people have, and the manipulation tactics are starting to fail, they are getting scared to the point where I think they'll try and ram this through.
Yeah, maybe, but it's junk. I mean, you can't. There's so many ghost guns now that have been 3D printed and unregistered. No one's going to. Those people, reality check, are not going to register their weapons. And if you try and pass a stupid bill like that, you're going to make a large segment of the American people criminals. And then that will lead to civil unrest at a level we haven't seen yet. So don't do it.
Well, normally I'd say I wouldn't necessarily agree because I think the American people typically comply. But I read a story about red flag laws. There was this old guy. And it was apparently like, I don't know, some like ex-girlfriend or ex-wife called the police saying he was unwell and he was armed. So the police came to serve a red flag warrant or whatever they call it. That's where they take your guns away. They show up at your house. You've committed no crime. And they say, someone thinks you're unwell. You have to give us your guns and then wait a period until you go undergo an evaluation. And then you get your guns back. And if you fail, then you don't get your guns back. So this guy, he's an older guy. He's in his 60s, I guess. Hears a knock at the door. And he grabs his gun and he answers the door with the gun. And the cops tell him, we're here to take your guns. And he says, like hell you are. And so they fight over his gun. And then they shot and killed the guy. When people say my cold dead hands, they mean it.
Right. And God forbid a situation where the cops go to serve something like that and the cops get killed. And then the cops are like, I'm not serving those stupid red flag things anymore. I'm not putting myself there. I'm not going into someone's house when they're armed and crazy to take their weapon. It's not my job.
Let me ask you, Luke. Are you familiar with the phrase, when the people fear their government, there is tyranny, but when the government fears their people, there is liberty?
I think I heard about that one.
Who
Once or twice. So was Thomas Jefferson?
Was it?
I believe so. I don't know. I believe that was it.
These barricades that are being put up around D.C., are they for a foreign threat?
Definitely not.
The government seems to fear its people right now, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of liberty.
Yeah. And also, a lot of the things that are called upon with this House resolution are absolutely nonsensical. They don't make any sense. If you want to stop gun violence, you would deal with inner cities where guns are banned. That's where most of the gun homicides are at. Same with suicide, same with police officer shootings. When you look at the statistics, people having the ability to defend themselves is not a bad thing. Overall, especially in the kind of grander experiment in the United States, if you look at places that are more gun-friendly, where you have more freedoms to bear arms, you have a lot less crime, you have a lot less murders, you have a lot less homicides. And I think that's because people are equalized by knowing that they could defend themselves.
Are you allowed to open carry in Austin, Texas?
I don't know about Austin, Texas specifically. They do have a very left-leaning mayor, and a lot of transplants from California do move there. Gun laws are extremely spotty all over the United States. There's no universal law. Places in New Hampshire, you could literally open carry anywhere and everywhere you go, except for federal buildings. But other places like New York City, they make you jump through impossible hoops just to get a firearm for personal home defense. So again, they vary. It all depends on the state, and there's so many different laws that ban one thing in one state, but it's totally legal in another state.
Well, I looked up austintexas.gov, and it says that you can open carry in the state of Texas. Is there widespread death, mayhem, and murder from people who are legally owning guns in the city?
In Texas? No.
Not that we've seen.
No.
So I was looking at some rural areas and driving around places in West Virginia and wondering, I was thinking to myself, it's really funny. There's like volunteer fire department. There's no real police department. It's like sheriffs. So where's all the gun violence from all these gun owners?
In the inner cities
it doesn't
and
exist.
deep cities.
But that's not true for Austin. Like Austin has open carry.
Texas is legit.
So what's wrong with New York, California, and Chicago?
They're packed in.
Well, people don't.
No, that's not. I mean,
people always forget, if a criminal wants a gun or a weapon or to hurt someone, they're going to find it one way or another. In Europe, they're using trucks, they're using buses, they're using knives, and there's even conversations in the United Kingdom about banning knives, and they have in some jurisdictions.
Dude, they arrested. There was this big story a couple of years ago where they arrested a construction worker for having, I think, a Leatherman, and they're like, "It's a knife, sir," and he was like, but the law exempts like tools, and they're like, "Sir, it's a knife," and so they confiscated it and gave him a fine or something like that. That's the UK, dude. I've seen stories about kids in my neighborhood tying a shoelace to a padlock and then swinging it and whacking someone in the head with it. So they banned padlocks. No joke. They were like, padlocks are banned, and I was like, why? And they were like, because someone tied it to a shoelace and whacked someone.
Dude, you could fill a sock with sand and break someone's skull with it. You don't ban sand.
Yeah.
Well, sand
ban the beach.
Sand wouldn't work all that well. You have to do quarters. That's what they do. They put change.
Quarters would do it.
And then they put it in a sock. And
forks make people fat. We should ban forks.
You could stab someone with a fork. You may want to be.
You
may want to consider. I'm not even going to joke about that.
No, it really is crazy to me that there's serious cultural problems and guns. There's no correlation. I mean, look, people in New York have guns and people will get shot. It's getting worse and worse and worse. It's up the ridiculous amount percentage-wise. Chicago, right? But why is it that in places where guns are heavily restricted, you have these problems, and in places where guns aren't heavily restricted, you kind of don't have these problems?
pharmaceutical drugs. Okay,
well,
it's
no,
a bit
no,
of a
no.
leap. But
Banning these tools won't make a difference because it won't address the problems that particular cities are dealing with. Cultural problems, family problems, father problems, family problems. There's a lot of bigger issues out there that if you really want to prevent harm, you could actually do. One of my favorite things was, I saw an advertisement. I actually saw this on Reddit too, and it was eat McDonald's, and right next to it, it was like social distance. It's for your safety. It's like, you have these two larger contradictory messages out there, and this idea that the government cares for you, that we need a bigger government to fix the government's problems that they created themselves, is just, it's insane. And gun control, I mean, it's a step towards total tyranny, because once they go after that, I mean, anything's on the table for what they could do to you. And we saw governments in Canada, governments in Australia really push it to the limit to what they could do with their citizens right after they got rid of their ability to have firearms. And we saw huge legislation, Canada, Australia, that almost eliminated people's abilities to defend themselves.
It's not even, I think, you're saying banning the tool won't change anything. And I think even out in places like West Virginia, gun laws it's totally cultural. Everything we're seeing, the crime, the problems, culture problems, the lack of crime in Austin has nothing to do with guns. I don't think the fact that someone can open carry deters crime. I'm thinking about how you can talk to a sheriff and he's going to be like, hey man, I'm not going to go in and mess with you and do these things. You go to New York and Tony Baloney pepper sprays 4 women on the street for no reason. It's cultural problems in big cities where people are nasty. And you know what I think it is? A lot of people say like, oh, it's the blue, it's the Democrats. And I'm like, no, I think culture in decay in blue cities leads to corrupt politicians who use feel-good Democrat policies to gain power. And then you look at these other cities where they have open carry and things like that. It's because they're more trusting of each other. It's like, you want to open carry? Sure. I'm not worried about you. I don't think you're going to shoot me. Right? In New York, they're like, you can't have that because I'm worried you're going to shoot me. Yeah. In DC, they put up big fences and a security perimeter because they're scared people are going to come after them.
It's absolutely hypocritical to see individuals like Nancy Pelosi that wants machine guns at the Capitol telling you can't have a firearm, you can't defend yourself, you can't have a, quote, weapon of war. And we're seeing such bastardized language. We're seeing such Orwellian tactics used here to make you paint as some kind of crazy terrorist criminal if you believe in the right to defend yourself. No, you're just a logical thinking human being that understands, just like as you keep saying, Tim, it's important to have a fire extinguisher in your house because, again, it's not that you're going to, of course, look for fires, but it's there in case there is one. And that preventative prevents a lot of crime. Let's just be honest here. When we see strong-armed robberies, they don't take place where they have a lot of individuals that are armed. Yep. They usually take place in situations where people are disarmed. So
what's that movie with Gerard Butler and the guys break into his house and like kill his family and then becomes like this crazy revenge rampage?
Yeah, I don't know the name of it.
What was that movie called?
I forgot. I don't.
He's great.
I'm not a big movie guy.
So it's Gerard Butler and what is it?
He's Leonidas from 300.
Let me see if I can look this up.
Did you watch it? What happened in the movie, Ian?
I haven't seen the movie. I just saw it.
It's a law-abiding citizen. So he's a dad. He's got a wife and a kid. And then one day his doorbell rings and he opens it and then he immediately gets smacked in the head with a baseball bat and falls down. They zip tie his hands and then they murder his wife and his daughter.
Jeez.
Later on, when these guys get probation or whatever, or get off on good behavior, he kidnaps and tortures them and then publicly releases the evidence, purposely wanting to go to prison, and then tries to get revenge on the system. I digress. I'm not making a point about that. I thought it was a great movie. I think the ending was bad, but it is what it is. But I was thinking about that, and I'm like, based on this character's willingness to like get revenge, he doesn't seem like Gerard Butler's character does not seem like a shy man, to say the least. But I was thinking about even having a firearm in your home is no guarantee you'll be prepared for when the threat really, really comes.
Yeah.
Which is why being able to open carry is important. Being able to have your weapon on you and being comfortable, confident, and well-trained. Because when you answer the door, someone might crack in there with a baseball bat. I mean, it's a movie, I know. But, I think about this just working here and everything like that and wondering about what's the point of even having a fire extinguisher if it's too far away and a fire happens, you can't put it out.
Right. When chaos ensues, things happen fast. You got to have a plan.
So we put fire extinguishers in like every room. Like most businesses will do this. They'll have a fire extinguisher in every room. Okay, well, what happens if you see these? You know what I love? you see this commercial, there's a gun control commercial where a guy angrily storms into an office with a musket, and then he fires once, and then he stops and he starts loading it. He pours the powder in, and then he puts the ball, and he starts stuffing it. And it's like, we get the point. And they were like, this is what the founding fathers expected. And I'm like, how do you subdue a threat when kids can go into a school with any weapon they want and go on a rampage? Like, how do you stop the threat?
You got to go to the root. That's my thing. I don't know if you can try and make less threats. That's probably the best way to do it. And I think the threats are pharmaceutical drugs, personally. I think that a lot of inner city crime comes from drugs or alcohol abuse and desperation, poverty that leads to those kind of things. It's easy to get a 40. It's easy to get an ounce of weed.
Now you're blaming people for smoking weed and drinking alcohol.
But when you look at a lot of mass shootings, these kids are whacked out. These humans have wide eyes. They look like they're on something.
I would disagree with you saying if someone gets high or drunk, they go shoot up places, especially if they get high.
I don't
think that's true. But I think the point that you're getting at is that a lot of mass shooting events were connected to individuals who were on SSRIs.
Notably, yeah.
Yes.
Well, yes, but the point I'm saying is there's cultural issues. In Chicago, a leading factor for these shootings is lovers' trysts. Like I went night crawling, and a bunch of these deaths we were tracking was a guy smack talking some other guy on Twitter about or Snapchat about some girl he was hooking up with. People think it's gangs. It's not. So there is a culture issue. We used to have duels. We used to actually have this. I guess now what they're doing is nothing to do with honor. It's just like the willingness to kill someone who slights you. Back in the day, that at least give you 10 paces and then you turn, right? What's happening in Chicago is a guy will post on Snapchat, like, after your girlfriend, the other guy says, oh, you're going to get it. And then the guy drives to his house and shoots the other guy. That's what's happening in Chicago. So that's a cultural problem where someone's willing to kill someone else. We just had this story where some young girl stabbed another girl to death just because, they
were bragging about it on social media. That's another part. That's absolutely sickening.
That's why
they were
saying
young children.
It has nothing to do with guns. I think guns are a scapegoat for the deep-seated cultural problems and the cultural decay affecting this country.
Well, humans have been killing each other forever.
Oh, yeah. But what I'm saying is, if you go to Austin and everyone's open, caring, and you're not having this extremely high murder rate, then what's going on in New York City? Something is broken and has nothing to do with guns because there's no correlation between the murder and guns.
Yeah. If you look at, the city of Tehran, they are arming themselves illegally because the Mexican government tells them to stop arming themselves. They told them to give up their weapons, and their death rate in their town went to 0%. It was some of the highest death rate in all of Mexico. Went to 0 when the citizens started to arm themselves and literally kicked out the government and the police and the cartels all along in one smooth move.
Great story.
So we're having individuals that are armed, that do have a lot of firearms, that are protected, that have their own militias, that do open carry throughout the streets, and you have 0 murders? When you had hundreds of murders beforehand and the highest death rate in all of Mexico in Michoacan, one of the deadliest states of all of Mexico. So that's another tale that I think is worth noting, worth talking about here with this larger debate, especially in Mexico where guns are illegal, but homicides by firearms are extremely high.
Maybe, that Thomas Jefferson quote, assuming it was Jefferson.
It is Jefferson.
It is Jefferson?
Yeah.
You got it right, yeah.
Maybe the issue is actually people should reasonably respect, trust, and fear each other. Reasonably.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is I should, look, if you've got some dude who's like 6'6" and like 220, just sheer muscle, or 250 or whatever, and I don't know what the right muscle mass to height would be, but like some super ripped dude.
Jack Murphy.
Well,
some super Jack Murphy dude.
Yeah.
But
super soldier.
I don't know if Jack Murphy's
Cut.
a super soldier. He's just tall.
But just think of Jack Murphy while we're telling
No,
the story.
I'm talking about like a He-Man type.
Yeah.
And he walks around knowing that he's bigger and stronger than everyone and pushes them around. Now you have a 5-foot tall woman, and he's laughing at her and mocking her, and then she's got on her waist, she's got a revolver, and so all of a sudden he's a bit more respectful. It's people know, like with being armed and being respectful, trustworthy, but also having something, giving someone reasonable fear of if they screw with you, they have something to fear. This way, you might have back in the day some big tall guy who knows he's stronger than you can push you around. Now I've got everybody who's armed, and they're going to be like, I'm not worried about you shooting me, but I'm not going to screw with you. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., so come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out. And we will see you all next time.